Hello and welcome back to the Checkpoint Reach podcast. This is a gaming and occasional movie news podcast. As ever, I'm your host Luke Eldon and I'm joined by my fellow friends and gamers Sud and Perks. How you doing, guys?
Very good, Luke. Yeah, having a good day. So hopefully this podcast, carries on that. So
I'm positive it will.
Yeah,
I'm positive
sure
it will. How are you, Perks?
I'm okay. I refuse to join in with Sud's high level of optimism that he always brings, but yeah.
Yeah, you balance us out, don't you?
Well, we wouldn't expect anything less, would we?
Yin
really?
and yang, man. That's how it is.
Yeah,
That's how it is, yeah. We will mention that we are down a co-host again today. Matty couldn't make it this week, unfortunately, but hopefully he'll be back next week. And continues drawing octopuses.
Yeah.
He drew an octopus last week. Check our socials for it. It was actually a pretty good drawing, to be fair. But anyway, we shared that out there.
He's putting his time to good use.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's still being creative, isn't he? So, well done, Matty, because I'm sure you'll listen. Anyway, we'll get started with our first topic of the day, which is, I think anyone could guess at what news we're going to start with, and it's that Apex Legends has hit 25 million total players since its debut last week. That's an astonishing number. I'm just reading here that during its first 3 days, it drew in 10 million players, 2.5 million of which were during the first day alone.
Yep.
These are incredible numbers, and the game came out of the blue, really, didn't it? So to see these numbers come out like a week on or so, it's pretty impressive.
Absolutely. I don't think any of us expected it to do this sort of number. I mean, you can say, well, it might have done well, but to get 25 million players in 1 week, and obviously it helps that the game's free. It's on PS4, Xbox One, PC, so it's got a large user base, of course. But how many other games do we see released for free that get nowhere near this number? So, it's had a lot of positivity, hasn't it? I think that's helped it a lot. The positive word of mouth of the game, people telling us like, "Oh, check this game out. It's really good." The fact that's another important thing to make as well. The fact that the game's actually good, that makes a big difference. That it's had positive reception. People are generally, in general, going, "This is actually really good." So,
yeah, that never hurts.
I think that helps
to actually have a good game.
No, absolutely, that makes a massive difference to a game. Because how many games have we seen before? We always go back to this game, but Fallout 76. I mean, look at the drop off in sales and players because of the reception of it. If that game had come out and been like a 90-95 on Metacritic or something, they would have had way more players. Way more. People would have been excited about it and stuff like that. So it does make a difference, the quality of the game. But one of the interesting points is to see whether, if it maintains this level and gets even bigger. Is it going to get as big as Fortnite? I'd say no, but what a great start.
Yeah, the longevity of Fortnite's pretty amazing. Can
the
Apex,
longevity.
Can it match
Yeah,
it?
I'd question.
Maybe.
No, I'd question the longevity of the game in terms of. I don't mean in terms of the game itself, but compared to Fortnite, I'd question the longevity. I think Fortnite kind of transcends gaming in a way now, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
pop
sure
culture,
Apex
isn't it?
Legends. Yeah, I'm not sure Apex Legends can get into pop culture really, but it doesn't need to, does it? Really, it doesn't need to be as big as Fortnite to be a success. It's already a success at 25 million players.
Well, EA's stocks show that as well because they've gone up after
massively.
A couple of bad weeks.
So, yeah, I think it's a great start.
Yeah, definitely is.
Long may it continue because, I don't know what you think, but the more I play the game, the more I'm enjoying it. So I'm getting much more into it the more I play it. And
I'm not sure Perks would agree with that. He seems to get killed more the more he plays it.
Yeah, I've gone from being a 4KD to a 2.3 or something in the last couple of days, so hard times. But look,
that's based on your, that's based on your skill level rather than it's not the game itself, is it? That's being bad.
No, that's based on the game just being more and more bullshit over time. But yeah, look, 25 million players in just over a week since it's been out now, or is it just literally 8 days? I think, and that's unbelievable. Like, we did this chat a week ago saying, where can it go? Where can it be? Where do we think it's going to end up? Already, that's crazy numbers for a week's time. So, in terms of an initial spike, they I doubt they expected anything like this. I'm sure they expected the numbers to be good across the board, but this is quite an astonishingly high number, and they've set the bar for themselves now, as well as setting the bar for everybody else, that is. Because to achieve 25 million players in just over a week, that's some going. And to maintain that over time, that's their challenge now.
It is. I mean, they've set up a brilliant foundation for themselves, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. And it's great to see that they've already, they've been very active on Twitter, haven't they? Announcing not exactly what they're doing, but they've announced that things are coming down the line. Season 1 starts in March, which will, everything will probably reset. Weapons will get balanced or made worse in some cases, like we've seen with other. There'll be probably broken things in the game and stuff like that, but that's happens with every game. It's happened with Fortnite, it happens with PUBG. You've got to expect that, but hopefully some new maps, which I'm fairly confident we'll see new maps.
Well, there are rumours, aren't there?
Yeah, there's rumours.
What were you saying before? Sorry, off the podcast. Rumored 3.
There's rumours, maybe 2, possibly 3 maps. I don't want to say anything too much more because it obviously is rumours. This could, it could be completely different, but there is rumours that there's going to be new maps for the game. We're here to speculate, exactly. We know there's going to be new legends. I mean, that's pretty obvious. I mean, who knows how many legends? It could be a high number eventually, couldn't it? We could be up to maybe 16 to 20 legends. I wouldn't be surprised eventually, which I think would be really good. More diversity is always good, I think, in games like that. You want as much diversity with characters and stuff like that, don't you? So with abilities and things like that, it changes the game up as well. If if you get a couple of new characters that have got different abilities or ones that these are really good, it makes people think about strategy and stuff like that. So a bit like Overwatch in that sense. When a new character comes out for that, people have to change their strategies completely, and it's very similar with this game, I think. Which is a good thing, I think that'll be interesting.
I really like the aspect of having characters or legends that are with different abilities. I think that really brings something different to the genre.
Well, I think the last couple of days when I've been playing the game more, I've played it more the last couple of games than at any other point when it first came out. I've started to change my opinion on it even more. Like, I did think at first, this is probably going to be a game that I'll play for maybe a week or so and then maybe drop it, but I don't know, the more I play it, the more I want to play it. There's an addictive element to that game.
It's got you hooked.
It does have me hooked. There's something about it, and it was the same sort of addiction I had when Blackout first came out. We were hooked for that. We kind of still are, I suppose. We play it a lot, but I think one element I wanted to bring Blackout into this because obviously, as a 3, we'd say that Blackout is, has been probably the best Battle Royale mode we've played, right? In general.
It's certainly been our favourite.
Been our
personal
favourite
preference, yeah.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that this game highlights, and the plans going forward highlight the deficiencies of Blackout, which, unchecked, I do think is a problem for Blackout in general. And I think you, off air, as you alluded to, people in the community have been talking and are quite worried about Blackout's future.
I think quite a few people have the same sort of current impression of Blackout. Everybody still likes it. Everybody thinks it's good, but it hasn't really changed that much. And before anyone jumps on that and tells me this has changed, that's changed, I'm not saying they haven't done their updates, because they have. I'm not saying they haven't made quite drastic changes to the weapon balances, because they have. The new way that you loot the death stashes and stuff. We have seen things, but it's kind of lost its way a little bit. There hasn't been that major update to the game that we've seen Fortnite pull out on a regular basis. It is stale. And for as good as it is, if you just leave something like that in such a competitive field right now with Fortnite and with how, I mean, let's be honest, nobody saw this coming from Apex.
No.
Because nobody even saw Apex coming.
No.
So
I think the Quarterist was actually the guy who broke the story. Is a YouTube guy that I watch. He broke it before anyone else on the Saturday. On the Thursday or Friday, and he was spot on with it. It was just pretty surprising.
Was it not also was it Jeff Keighley? Kind of broke it in a way as well, didn't he? Because he said he didn't break the get to a game, but he said they've got something to announce or whatever. So yeah. It's
But yeah,
and
Blackout needs something. But I think with Blackout, sort of bottom line right now is it's still very good. It's still very addictive. It's still a really strong offering. But you cannot stand still in this market. If you do, then you'll be left behind.
Well,
and
Perks, if you just take a look at Fortnite, I mean, let's be honest, it's had longevity because it's mixed things up with obviously
Definitely.
different seasons, different maps.
yeah,
Even marketing employees, we've touched on it before, Thanos and the Gauntlet.
hmm
It keeps reinventing itself, and even just what have we asked for so long now with Blackout? Please, even over Christmas, just put snow on the map, just so it feels
Something.
different.
well,
It's
yeah,
a
I
bit
mean,
tiresome.
Look, I mean, it does seem as if they're going to be doing things with the desert side of the map at least. Just
Mhm.
lately, there's been small sort of hints appearing that if you perhaps read a bit too much into, you'd well, you'd be careful, I suppose, because we're not too sure. But there's been little changes certainly to little parts, and we'll see what they do with that. And we're expecting that, like I said, in particular, the desert side of the map will have something new in the, I hope, short term, rather than having to wait too long for it. But
Mhm.
still, it could be too little too late by the time it comes around. Even now, they've got a lot of catching up to do. And I find it very difficult to envisage a way that Blackout takes top spot in this, even
Oh,
though
it's
it might
yeah.
be my favorite.
no, I think
Right now, it's so far behind.
It's
I
so
think it's
far
too
behind,
late
and it's
already.
not free, so there's no
No, that
chance.
doesn't.
Exactly
It's
right.
too late already. I think we've even seen recently that PUBG's even ahead of it at the minute in terms of you look at the views on Twitch and stuff like that, which is okay, not not the definitive metric, but a very good metric
It's a good
to be able
indicator,
to
isn't
tell
it?
an indicator of which games are more popular than others. And PUBG, for as much as we criticised it, still gets decent numbers. So it's still trucking along and doing well. Obviously, mainly due to a big PC base of fans that love it, and it is seen as the most hardcore of Battle Royale games, isn't it, PUBG? So I think that's why that does well.
Mhm.
I do think, though, over time, I think you're going to see. I think another massive thing for Apex when they start doing tournaments, because that is a game that is definitely tournament ready. This Apex game at Legends, 100%. Just the way the game is in threes and stuff like that already, and they're adding solo and duo, I know, but threes is still going to be the definitive mode, I would imagine. But that game's already tournament ready, and you're going to see it. I think EA are going to really push it hard for tournament play and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Battle Royale is usually does well based off what streamers think, doesn't it? Good players and streamers, and they're absolutely loving Apex at the minute. Most streamers, most hardcore players of Battle Royale games are loving it.
Yeah.
So,
Even if they have been paid by EA to
well,
obviously sponsor it, but
so
the rest
people,
of them are liking it too. To be fair.
but what's the difference between with that and PUBG paying people to like and Fortnite?
No, I know it's influencers. It's
Is
how the world works now. But I'm just
Fortnite
saying.
got popular because people influence. It's
Yeah,
just the
I'm
same
just saying
thing.
though that influencers like it, but even people who aren't influencers
Yeah,
are
exactly.
liking it. So
Exactly.
it's doing really well. One question we have basically answered it and talked about it a little bit. I was going to ask what do we think this means for Fortnite and other battle royales going forward. However, are we going to agree that this Apex Legends is probably second on the list now behind Fortnite, ahead of PUBG and Blackout?
Well, right now it's number one, isn't it? It's the most popular.
Yeah.
I think right now it's the most popular game in the world. There's no doubt about that. 25 million players.
I still think Fortnite's number one.
But
No, I
again,
know
we're
overall.
talking a week in,
I'm
right?
talking-
We're only talking a week in. So right now, Fortnite is still top dog. But hey, if Apex can achieve this in a week, imagine what they can do going forward.
In terms of popularity, right this second though,
They've got the
Apex
ball.
is number one.
They've got the ball.
So it's up to them to keep that base. If they kept that base as it is now, they'd remain number one. But they're probably not going to, because Fortnite is going to have a constant stream of players at all times, and Apex will probably take a dip. But who knows? Look, we've been wrong before. Maybe Apex will be the biggest game in the world for a long time to come. I can't see it though. Like you said, I think it's going to slot in at that number 2 position. Yeah. I think
Fortnite's going to come out swinging.
Fortnite. Well, isn't the season whatever it is now on 6 or 7 out soon as well? As soon as the new Fortnite season comes out, it's probably going to go back to number 1.
Yeah.
In Twitch and stuff like that. But
I'd imagine so.
But having said that, Apex Legends season 1 comes out in March, so it's going to have competition. And if
they're
they
bringing
can get
their Battle Pass, aren't they? So
yeah, Battle
they're
Pass
going to
as well,
be very
which
similar. But...
wow, that is going to make so much money as well for EA, that Battle Pass.
Well, didn't you have a story, Perks, about a friend of yours who you were playing with said he didn't like the game, but then what was it? 10 minutes later, bought a skin. It's like $16.
You know,
yeah, it's crazy. He was bashing the game. He got killed, raged, and then he got one of the free boxes through whatever it's called through leveling up, and yeah, he was like, "Oh, this skin looks cool," and then he changed over to the store and he saw the featured skin. I can't remember which gun it was for in particular, but he was like, "Dude, have you seen this skin?" And within seconds, he'd bought it, loaded into the next game, desperate to find that weapon so he could show us the skin. And I just thought that's the crazy representation of how the hooks sort of work with games like this right now, I guess.
Yeah, they've reeled him in.
Literally.
And yeah, it's interesting we could talk about the list of, who's first, second, third, fourth. But the worrying thing for me is that Blackout is definitely in fourth place, and I can't see a way it's going to raise itself. I do have this worry that it's just going to be left to rot. Not left to rot, maybe that's a strong word, left to rot, but left in a position where eventually, come April, May time, they're going to be focusing on the new Call of Duty out for this year. And they might just ignore Blackout completely and just let it sit. And that would be a shame because I think Blackout has a lot of potential. And hopefully, I'm hoping in the next Call of Duty, they'll really expand on Blackout. But we'll see. Maybe they won't think it's worth venturing further on with it. But
yeah, I still think Blackout's the best combat experience in the Battle Royale genre.
I would have agreed with you before the last couple of days, but I'm starting to change my mind.
Now?
Yeah, I'm starting to change my mind now. Although I haven't played Blackout for the last 2-3 days, so maybe that's skewing my thoughts.
It's fresh in your mind. How about you, Perks? What are your thoughts? Because you're better than me and Sud on both games with your kill to death. So,
do you know what? I've enjoyed Apex. It takes a while, like we alluded to last time. It does have a steeper learning curve than Blackout for sure. It's not presented in the form of an old school shooter. It's not that easy to pick up and play. They both have their charm. Apex probably has more.
I agree.
I think from a simplistic point of view, I really do like Blackout because we were all massive COD fans back in the day when it was the online shooter. Something about that still resonates with me, but at the same time, new and different ways of doing things, like I said last time out, they appeal to me so much more than just, okay, we've seen this before, it's good, but what's new? So I'm all for Apex at the moment. I'm interested to see, because the sort of devil's advocate to what I said before is that, yeah, they've done so well in a week, but it is only a week. And what happens in a month, what happens in 2 months, we'll see. I'm going to say I prefer Blackout just right now, but I'm under no illusions that it's by no means leading the way.
That could change. I mean, one of the ways that I judge how big this game's actually become is just if you check out their Twitter, as soon as they put a post, there's like thousands of replies within 2 minutes, and that's exactly what Fortnite's been like. All those little Jimmies cramming in the comments.
Well, the last time I checked on Twitter, it had 750,000 viewers, and it was over 3 times more popular than Fortnite in terms of views. So,
is that on Twitter or Twitch?
That's on Twitch.
Right, got you.
Now, obviously, that's because it's new as well, but that is an amazing feat to have 3 times as many views as Fortnite. But
it really is.
That will level out over time, obviously. When Fortnite comes with its new season, we'll see that grow and stuff like that. So, Fortnite obviously is catering to a younger audience as well, which long term helps Fortnite. Whereas I think Apex is more of a... I don't think you're going to get too many children, or not children. This is more skewed at the young adult market, isn't it? I think Apex Legends, people in their 20s, maybe early 30s, Whereas I think Fortnite is skewed at the teens and stuff like that. So Fortnite long term probably will still be ahead, but
do you know what? There's always something else.
Well, so.
There's always something else.
Always comes along.
Something will come along, no matter how dominant, no matter how unbeatable. Something will come along, and maybe Apex is that thing.
Possibly,
just a part of life, isn't it? Everything evolves.
I'm just looking forward to seeing how the game develops. I'm really looking forward to seeing the roadmap ahead and to see what EA. They've got a lot of money behind them, EA, and I think you'll see a lot of really cool things with this game. I really do. I think there's going to be a lot of cool events. I think they'll really push it. I think they might push it on the Fortnite level of updates as well. I really do. So watch this space, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's going to be really intriguing. Do you think... I've read a few comments online, people saying that this is going to have a negative effect on another EA title that's coming out next week, Anthem. Well, what would you guys think of that?
Yeah, I've heard this as well, and some people have questioned why EA have done this and have they made a mistake, because this game is so popular now that is it going to put people off buying Anthem? Like, it's a slightly different audience, don't get me wrong. The Battle Royale audience and the sort of, Destiny Division type audience, if you want to call it that, is different, of course.
That audience will be in that 25 million, though, as well.
Well, that's it. Some of that audience, there'll be some... There's going to be some people that buy Anthem regardless. I mean, we're all buying it.
Mm-hmm.
I think long-term, maybe. I don't think short-term. I think the game will probably sell okay. I think it'll do well. I don't think it's going to do as well as Destiny did. I don't think it's going to sell as well as Destiny did. But I think the game will sell good numbers. I don't think it'll be extraordinary numbers. I think it'll just be good numbers. It's whether they can keep that user base and keep them invested in the world. That's the important part. And with Apex Legends, if that's taking even a slight, minority of people away, that's not good for EA. So we'll have to see
with how temperamental EA can be as well.
I know I'm going to be, as much as I've enjoyed Apex Legends, don't get me wrong, I have enjoyed it and I will probably continue to play it. My focus next week is going to be on Anthem. So we'll see. We'll see if Anthem draws me in as much as Apex has. I hope it does.
I mean, just to look at it from a different perspective, and I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts. Imagine if Anthem released, whether it started well, somewhere in between, or terribly, and then 2 weeks after launch, rather than sort of 2 weeks before, like they've done now, Apex drops and smashes this sort of 25 million players and stuff like that. So they could have really waited for Anthem to launch, then did this, and completely killed the game by doing it so shortly after the launch of Anthem. So to do it before, I don't think is a bad idea. I guess time will tell. How we'll see the numbers of Anthem very shortly, but I think they're probably more comfortable doing it this way around than the other way, because people could have put Anthem down and never come back.
I must admit, though, I thought EA would be the other way around, the way you're talking about, because they'd have made potentially more money, with people buying Anthem, and then all of a sudden this new game comes out, and obviously it's Apex Legends.
I think it's difficult. I honestly don't think there's a right or a wrong way to look at this. I think everyone could have a different opinion on what should have come first, but I don't know. I guess one way of looking at it for them would be that they, as a company, get a hell of a lot of criticism, and right now they're going to be they're going to be at the forefront of people's minds in a good way.
And I know ride that wave.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Let's not count Respawn out, because it's not just EA. So yeah, maybe this is good for EA. Well, it's obviously good for EA, but in terms of the way that they're perceived. So
definitely, I think as well. I do sense, like, it might be a bit early because we've seen this from EA before and then they've gone the other way, but I do sense a bit of a sea change at EA now. I think, I know a lot of people hate EA, and there was that thing, wasn't there, a few years ago, the worst company in America and all this rubbish that people
I think they got voted that twice.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't always believe them, to be honest. I think they're much worse companies in America, to be honest, but that's what people voted for. But I do think, the last couple of years they've had a lot of flack and they've made a lot of terrible decisions, most notably with, Battlefront, Battlefield 5 as well, all the controversy around that.
They blamed single-player game, the single-player campaign for that.
I remember that yeah. So, but they've had a lot of criticism, haven't they? And I do sense that the tide's starting to maybe turn a bit. Maybe they've realised now, okay, we need to actually start doing something for our fans here, because if we don't, slowly we're losing people. And maybe this is a sea change, and I hope it is, because it's a positive move. And because we saw, didn't we, with Battlefront 2 with their microtransactions, especially looking at it from that point of view, that was criticised, rightly so, because it was horrendous. I mean, the fact that it was taken, they were purposely putting the progression down so people would buy like Darth Vader for like £40 or whatever it was, instead of earning him.
Surely it wasn't quite £40.
I don't know. It's an exaggeration, but they were charging money,
it was, I
for
think,
the packs where you can unlock him, and it probably cost a lot more than that maybe to unlock him. but if you're buying the packs, but they've definitely improved because you look at this Apex Legends, what have they done? They've gone down the Fortnite route. Nothing, all cosmetic.
To be fair, though, just stopping you quickly, I read, though, that EA didn't have much to play in this. It was mainly Respawn.
Well, if Respawn have managed to persuade EA, that's good then, isn't it? That's a good thing,
But if
Maybe
EA
EA
see
will
the
learn
money
from this.
signs, they might start thinking, right, okay,
No, I don't think they will.
we'll take over here.
No,
I mean, let's not
pretty certain
look at
they
this
won't.
like a Guardian Angel or anything like that. They still have microtransactions riddled through Apex Legends. It's free to play, so it's more acceptable. They still have a battle pass which is coming, which is more money. So I'm not going to say that they've turned over a new leaf because, let's be honest, Apex is riddled with microtransactions, so is Anthem. So
yeah, but that's not
whether
the
it's
point
free to play
for
or a
me.
premium experience, what the things that people hate them for, they're still there.
No, I disagree. The reason people hate the microtransactions in Battlefront wasn't because there was microtransactions in the game. It was because it affected
No,
the game
Battlefront
itself.
in particular,
Yeah,
it
Battlefront in
affected the game
particular,
itself. But
yeah.
people don't like EA,
No, they don't,
and they
but
don't like EA's microtransactions.
It's
So
irrelevant. I think this microtransaction argument has become more and more irrelevant as time goes on. People are just accepting that they're in the games now. And I think it's becoming the type of microtransactions that's in your game that's the big thing. Like, I've not heard any criticism of Fortnite microtransactions. And why is that? Because they don't
generally
affect the
people
game.
accept things that if it's a free-to-play title and there's microtransactions, generally speaking, people are more accepting of it. But with EA in particular, let's be honest, people say they're going to boycott EA everything because it's EA.
True.
There's no sort of, if another company did what EA do, that company wouldn't get criticized and EA would, because that's what EA is right now. So,
but they could have easily, with this game, done the Battlefront route if they really wanted to and try and make more money. But they've realised that I think, and,
they can't do that anymore.
They can't do that anymore, and they know they've looked at Fortnite and gone, why do they not get criticism? Why is their microtransaction so successful? Because one is because they don't affect the gameplay at all, and people get addicted to buying like skins, which I don't have a problem with, because at the end of the day, that's your decision, isn't it, to buy them? If you want to buy a skin for your character, no one's forcing you to buy it. It's not affecting the game. It's not making the game any. People that buy the skins aren't getting advantages. It's just cosmetic, purely cosmetic. Like the same as if you went to a shop and bought clothes or whatever. It's the same thing. It's a skin for your character. It doesn't affect anything else. So I don't have a problem as much with the microtransactions that are like that, because as long as I don't personally have to pay for them and it doesn't affect my enjoyment of the game, then I don't have a problem. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest with Apex just before we move on. Like, they do have 2 locked legends through. You can purchase them, so
yes, that is a good
slightly
point.
different. And I know you
say
can get them through gameplay.
It doesn't actually take that
but
long, because
still.
I've already purchased one and it didn't take me that many games to purchase it. So it's not the same as the Battlefront one where you literally have to play like 500 games to unlock a character.
Battlefront was the worst possible example for them. I wouldn't even try and sort of fight anybody on that. Battlefront was a disgrace.
Yeah,
but this doesn't sort of come completely away from that. I think you can buy things that you can use in the game, and I don't know. Like I've said before, I'm not defending nor criticizing this. I think it's a really diverse topic. How far is too far? What counts as pushing the boundaries too much with microtransactions that are purely cosmetic or influence the game in small ways? Everyone's got different opinions, and it's so diverse. I think it's going to be a long time before anything sort of conforms to the norm in this, because people will literally just do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, but I would like to say that we can all agree it's at least a good start for the year for EA. It's a good start. At least they've made a good positive start to the year.
Definitely.
There's not so much negativity at the minute around them, and hopefully if Anthem's launch goes well and there's not too many problems, and that's another good thing for EA. So I just hope it isn't. I'm not saying it definitely is a turn of the leaf. I'm hoping it is.
Oh yeah, I mean, sure, we all hope that, but hey, time will tell.
We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, time will tell, and we'll see what EA decide to do going forward, considering they've got a hit on their hands. However, we will move on to topic 2, our second topic of the day, which is Activision Blizzard begins laying off workers. The layoff came ahead of Activision Blizzard's Q4 earnings call. Ahead of its fourth quarter earnings report, Activision Blizzard had started the process of laying off members of its staff. During the call, it was said the drawdown will affect approximately 8% of its workforce, or nearly 800 employees. I mean, obviously, this is quite... Well, it was quite shocking, actually, because they also announced record net revenues of $7.5 billion for $7.5 billion for 2018. So to then obviously announce that they're laying off 8% of its workforce, that was it's quite the turn up there. What do we think of this?
I think I'll start with this one. I mean, that in itself, where they say they've achieved record results in 2018, they followed it up by basically saying that they missed expectations for 2018. And as such, they've lowered their expectations for 2019. So achieving record results in 1 year, but also missing their expectations for 1 year. How high were they aiming? I know you always you aspire to be above and beyond the best, but there's something that doesn't add up there, right? I'm not the only one who hears that and sort of reads deeper into that and thinks that's a bit bizarre. So if you sort of, look a little bit between the lines, they haven't particularly been sabotaging their gaming divisions and stuff like that. They've focused on laying off non-game development departments. I think it was things like publishing side of things, and I think esports were, I know that is gaming, but those sort of departments were hit hardest.
Yeah.
And I think the quote was something like that they'd expanded too much on them over the last few years to support the needs going forward. And it's basically saying, yeah, we don't have those needs anymore, so this proportion doesn't work, and bye, basically.
Yeah, it's a change of focus, isn't it?
Yeah.
It seems like more than anything. It's because they do mention, don't they, that a lot of the staff as well were also on projects that are kind of finished, haven't they? They're finished with the project. There's nothing else for them to really do there. There's no space for them in any of the departments. They've had to, unfortunately, lay them off.
Yeah, it's
which is horrible.
For those
it's horrible
involved.
for the people working there. It's terrible. Not just in gaming, any sort of in life, really. When a big company has to slash jobs, it's horrible. But I think in this case, I think it doesn't sound as bad. Sorry, it sounds worse than it actually is. I think in terms of if people are worried about, does this mean I
wouldn't say that to the 800 employees.
No.
No, I just mean in terms of like people out there worried about, if they're, the next Call of Duty is going to be affected. I don't think it affects anything like that, because they said, didn't they, that their new focus now is to double down on their big existing franchises. And they mention, obviously, their portfolio is big. It includes sort of Diablo, Call of Duty, Overwatch, even Candy Crush, World of Warcraft, things like that. So they're going to double down on them because because they're the money makers, aren't they? Really?
Yeah.
And
they also
the
announced in this report as well, actually, that loot boxes and card packs are on the decline in Overwatch.
On the decline in Overwatch and Hearthstone, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So the only thing that worries me about that statement about doubling down, that you can see that as a good thing, can't you? Okay, they're doubling down on the next Call of Duty. If they double down on that, we were just talking about Blackout.
It's
We'd
definitely
hope to see
PR spin using those words.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, we were just talking about we want to see a Blackout improve for the next Call of Duty, and hopefully a result of this is a better Call of Duty game in the future. If they're doubling down on COD. But the worrying thing for me is that there's no mention of new projects. I mean, I'm sure they must have something in the works, but it does worry me a bit when they only talk about doubling down on their existing franchises, and it makes me think, are they just going to sort of consolidate now and just go with the massive franchises? Because we've seen, haven't we? I know they only publish it, but stuff like the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy and Spyro, and we've got Crash Team Racing coming out this year. I want that to carry on. I want them to publish these sort of games that people love. Remasters, remakes, stuff like that. And I hope that doesn't disappear, because we don't. I don't want to see a scenario where we look at Activision and go, oh, well, we only know them for COD or for Overwatch, or I want them to create new things as well. And I mean, obviously, it coincides, doesn't it, really, with the Destiny stuff as well, because that's another one that's gone by the wayside. And it's interesting now
this is basically just, you can say I told you so with it. I mean, we talked about their previous earnings call, and now this one's just followed it up. We talked about, the peripheral stuff and the the things that they do as well as the big hitters, and where do we see
Yeah.
them investing their money in the future? And we kind of have that answer now, don't we? It's like,
Seems
hey,
like
if you're not a major franchise, you can fall by the wayside, and we're going to go hard on what we've currently got, which is, it's hard to criticize them trying to support what's best for them because, hey, smart business and all that, right? But in the long term, those franchises fall off. You have to have
that's
something
true.
new eventually. So, like I said, this doesn't really represent their gaming divisions being cut in half. But I don't know, going forward, you can kind of see a subliminal message here, I think, where this isn't a good thing. This could never be a good thing, not for anyone who's lost their job, not for Activision Blizzard, or whichever positive spin they try on it. This can't be good.
Yeah, it seems a bit of a snowball effect of late, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think the one positive thing I'd put on it though is, I am worried about future developments with the sort of lesser games, as you call them, games that aren't going to be massive, huge money spinners. But they have, with the Crash Insane Trilogy and the Spyro remaster, they took a bit of a gamble, didn't they, with those? And they paid off handsomely for them. I don't know if you saw, but recently Crash Insane Trilogy achieved over 10 million sales. So
I don't
that
know.
was
Is that
clearly
really a gamble?
Well, no, I mean, a
Seems
gamble
like
in
it's playing it
terms of,
safe.
Yeah.
well, maybe, but I mean, they're playing on nostalgia. But I think it's a gamble in terms of, what about if they miscalculated and it wasn't as popular as they thought? You just don't know with these things.
Well,
sometimes.
based on their sort of back-to-back earnings calls, they think everything's going to be more popular than it is.
Well,
But
and you have to
they're
remember as
playing
well,
it safe with
this
Crash
isn't
and
any normal
Spyro.
company. This is Activision. Their expectations are through the roof compared to a lot of other companies. So, for all we know, they might be disappointed with only 10 million sales for Crash, which I don't think is. I think that's ridiculous if they think that 10 million sales for a remaster is amazing. But but they have carried on, haven't they? At the end of the day, we're going to get a Crash Team Racing remaster in June, which is the stuff of dreams for me personally. So, they've not completely abandoned, I suppose, the smaller games, but going forward, it does make me a little bit skeptical of what they're going to do.
I mean, they finished off, didn't they? It was the CEO. The name escapes me. Bobby Kotick.
Bobby Kotick, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
He said something like they didn't realize their full potential despite the 2018 results being the best in history, and in order for them to achieve that potential, they've made an important number of leadership changes or something garbage like that. You have less people there now. That fair enough. You can always say, you trim the deadwood, you streamline things, you make it better, but we're talking about a massive amount of people that they've gotten rid of, and across the board, I just don't see how that makes them better as a company. Maybe I could be wrong. Who knows? But with the size of them and their expectations,
Seems like warning
I
signs.
just don't see how, it's not like they've got rid of a small department or closed an underperforming section and, a few people here or there are gone. This is massive.
8% of their entire
8% of their
That's a lot.
And
For a company that big, it's a lot.
size, I don't know. I see warning signs with this. I'm not saying that they're going to fall off a cliff tomorrow, but going forward and in the long term,
it depends.
Can't be best for business.
It will depend on because they'll obviously be saving a lot of money, laying off 8% of the workforce long term because the wages and stuff like that, and projects that will have probably either already finished that are saving money on, or projects that may have even been canned, things like that they're probably saving money on. So it's important what they use that money for. That's what's going to make or break this, probably. If they use it in the right way, then it could be a good thing. But if they use it in the wrong way, then that's when the problems start, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the only, my final say on it would be the only resource that they've actually improved on by doing this is their money. And that's not necessarily a good thing.
No,
but,
not necessarily.
Hey, like I said, I'm not saying that I'm right with this, but I don't know. Maybe it's just in my nature to focus on the seemingly negatives, but that's just my view on this one.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's warning signs, and obviously something we'll have to keep our eye on in the future to see how it goes. However, moving on to topic number 3, and it's Xbox announces plans to expand future gaming through technologies. Microsoft announced its plans for expanding gaming to its users over the next decade at DICE 2019 on Tuesday, and are quoted as saying, "Any game with anyone on any device." Head of Global Gaming Partnerships and Development at Xbox and Microsoft, Sarah Bond, spoke about the methods that they will use to implement their visions into reality. She said, "Of the 8 billion people on the planet, 4 billion of them are digitally connected and 2 billion of them are gamers. By 2030, the 8 will become 9, the 4 will become 5, but the big number is of the 2 billion. That will become 4 billion. Nearly half the world's population will be playing games." Well, that's a pretty bold statement and prediction for the future. What do we think of this? Do we think that she'll be right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because she's not basing it off just consoles, is she? She's basing off any type of gaming. So we're talking mobile gaming, PC gaming, games that you play on your tablet, anything like that. Any sort of game that you play on any device, she's talking about. And I don't think it sounds that far-fetched, to be honest. I mean, 2030's not that long away, but we'll probably advance quite a lot in the next 11 years, digitally.
Well, you look back 11 years, how far we've actually advanced now.
Well, exactly. And as time goes on, the world becomes less poverty-stricken, doesn't it? Like, as time goes on, you would imagine we're advancing at a rate where poverty is becoming less and less. So even third world countries now might not be third world countries in another 10 years. So they'll have access to platforms and devices where they can play games on. So, you know, even mobile phones and stuff like that. So it does kind of make sense what she's saying. Obviously, I guess her and Microsoft's aim is to be the top dog in terms of being the one that delivers that, aren't they?
Well, touching on that, actually for connectivity, Microsoft invested in Project X Cloud, where players will be able to play any game natively from the cloud on any device, including mobile phones.
Yeah.
So they've definitely got the vision, haven't they? And they're going to do all they can to turn it into reality.
And many people think the one obstacle is the introduction of 5G, don't they? That's going to be the next big, massive shift, where it will get to a stage where 5G is so fast and so powerful that there won't be any problems again with streaming or anything like that.
Unless you're in North Wales.
Yeah, they'll still. Yeah, but my point about the world becoming less poverty-stricken as time goes on, which is happening, and it probably will continue to happen at a fast rate, the way we're going, is that will change, won't it? Places that unimaginably wouldn't have had access to this sort of thing will start having access to better internet connections and better technology as their country grows. So economically,
sometimes it feels like some third world countries already have when you play some people.
Yeah,
lag.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. But no, I think Microsoft. The whole point of this is that they want to be at the forefront of this digital revolution that we're going to see in the next 10 years in terms of the way games are delivered to us, and there is going to be a big shift. There's no doubt about it. I don't think we're quite there yet. I still think there's a few more years yet till it's fully realised. But you're talking 11 years time. That's a long time. By 2030, the gaming landscape is going to look completely different.
Yeah, really
completely different. You know, companies. We think now, don't we? Oh, it's still going to be Nintendo, Xbox, and Microsoft. Sorry, Nintendo, Xbox, and Sony. But you know, that could be completely different in 10 years' time. Amazon might have come in by then. Apple might have come in by then. Facebook are making big plays, aren't they now?
Well, there's already rumours of Amazon making their own console, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And there's been rumours for years of Apple getting into it, hasn't there? And there's been rumours of Google getting into it. And there's been rumours of Facebook have bought gaming things and stuff like that. So all massive, the biggest global companies in the world pretty much right now. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see over the next few years what happens. Microsoft, I think, they're trying to be the first ones, aren't they? They want to be the innovators that do it first and get into people's mindsets. And, you know, with stuff like Project X Cloud and Xbox Game Pass falls into this category as well. You know, their Netflix type service going into that.
And what we touched on last week, cross-platform becoming
cross-platform
more,
play, yeah.
Yep.
And even Sony have had to pretty much concede ground there, haven't they? They've had to be like, all right, fair enough. We'll have to take the L on this one. And
yeah, they kind of got backed into a corner, didn't they?
Because I don't know if you've heard, Rocket League's cross-platform play goes live next week on all platforms. Mm-hmm. So that's another game that's gone that way. I think next generation you'll see a lot more games cross-platform between them all. Multi-platform games, that is.
Definitely.
We talked last week, didn't we, about Xbox Live on Switch? Eventually, I think Microsoft would love Xbox Live on everything, including PlayStation, and I think that is something that could happen one day. But might be a long way from the PlayStation one, but I think it'll be on everything else.
Yeah,
quite soon, actually, sooner than people think.
It seems to be going that way, and like you said, they want to be at the forefront of this.
Whether that's good for us as console gamers, I don't know. As Microsoft console gamer fans, because I don't know if that's the direction ultimately they want to be in, but it should be a good thing if you're an Xbox fan in general, because I think their output is going to be a lot bigger next generation because of these sort of initiatives. They cannot afford to not be at the forefront of people's minds with software and things like that. If they want to be at the forefront of digital revolution, they have to have the content. And I think we're going to see a lot more content from Microsoft next generation, a lot more.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts on it, Perks?
Ideally we would have had this news story last week because we spent so much time talking about the future of gaming and sort of brand identities and such. I mean, some of the quotes coming out of this sort of story where, a world where you can play any game with anyone on any device. I don't know.
Here comes pessimistic Perks.
Well, if you remember rightly, I said last week about the identity of what we currently have, right? Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo. That sure we all have third-party things going on all around us, but it's the exclusives that give us that identity and give them their identity. It's the point that we have an Xbox and a PlayStation rather than just a console that does everything, that connects everyone with no competition, because that's kind of what I take from this. Hey, if you can play any game, because that's what they said, with anyone on any device, hey, it doesn't matter if you have an Xbox or a phone or a tablet or a PC or whatever will be out there.
No, but
it's
one point I'd like to make is, though, yes, you're right about that, but you'll still have to have Xbox Live, which is a paid subscription service, which you will have to pay money to Microsoft to get. So technically it is exclusive. Because if you're on Switch, for example, we'll talk about Switch because that's obviously, they announced it last week. They're going to, rumored to be, it's going to be on Switch at some point. If you are on Switch, you're going to have to pay for an Xbox Live subscription, which gives money to Microsoft. So technically, you are paying for their service. And if there's a game exclusively on Xbox that you play on Switch, that is still an exclusive because you're having to pay money towards Microsoft, if you kind of get what I'm trying to say.
No,
so Microsoft won't care if that makes sense, as long as I get money.
I completely understand the concept, but this to me is like, I'm not saying this won't be the future because we raised the question last time out. If it continues to go this way, this could well be the future. But this is not individual. This is just a throw it out there. Any game, any device, anyone, regardless of subscriptions and stuff like that. What is the point in owning? And this could have been Sony. What would be the point in owning any other device if you can just play the same stuff on every device? Why isn't there just one single device? Why is there an Xbox? Why is it not just generic console? Here you go. Everybody has the same thing.
But if in the future...
It's a bit bizarre to me.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But if in the future Xbox Live, say the unimaginable happens, right? And in 10 years' time, Xbox Live's on a Sony console, right? So if you're buying a PlayStation, are Microsoft going to care that you've bought an Xbox if you're paying for Xbox Live on a PlayStation? I don't think they will. And they'll always have the option to buy an Xbox console.
Look, my point with this is, what's the point in Sony's gaming division? Who cares anymore? If that is what happens,
well, that's a question Sony has to answer.
But it doesn't have to be, just this way. If Sony did the same thing, or if Nintendo were to do the same thing, what's the point in the others existing? What, to just present you? Oh, I prefer that controller, so that's it, because I can still play any game anywhere on whatever I have. So it's like, when does it become, I'm an Xbox gamer or I'm a PlayStation gamer? You just become a gamer. That there is no individuality to it anymore. It's just, and I'm not even saying this is like, I really don't want to see this, but from a convenience perspective, yeah, great. But I just don't see a world where we just have gamers and they're not assigned to. I mean, what's the point? What would be the point in in any gaming division, not just Xbox or Sony. What would be the point in the mobile gaming division? If you can just play anything on anywhere, well, who cares? Just own whatever.
It's
It
important.
seems bizarre.
It's important to remember this is just what Microsoft are aiming for. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Doesn't mean they're going to be the first to, enhance this technology. It doesn't mean that another company can't come along and surpass them. Doesn't mean another company will take a lot of their market share. We're sort of assuming Microsoft are definitely going to be at the forefront of this, and they might be. But there's other companies out there that are doing the same thing. Are probably looking at Microsoft thinking, well, we can do this to improve on it. And there has to be discussions at Sony. But I think Sony, as well as they've done this generation and stuff, and we're going to talk a bit more about Sony in a sec. But as well as they've done this generation, looking forward in the future, things don't look quite as rosy for Sony. I think going forward, like 10 years, because they don't have the same infrastructure that Microsoft has with cloud and things like that. They don't have the same infrastructure in software that Microsoft does, and it's going the software route rather than the hardware route. So I think there's some tricky times for Sony ahead, and there's some questions for them to answer, definitely. And Microsoft are definitely, I think, in a very strong position going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Look, in the next 10 years, I would expect Microsoft to be ahead of Sony, even though they might not be right now in this particular discussion. But I'm not even against the idea. But, and I'm not saying we could easily sit here and say we've seen it all before, where they expect the cloud to be so powerful and you can play from any device using this, that, and the other. And we have the current infrastructure limitations. I've said that countless times. It wouldn't be viable now, but in 10 years' time, whilst we have the developments in 5G and such, yeah, it's more viable than it was maybe when they first breached it a few years back. But I mean, the one thing that I just can't buy into this right now, and like you said, hey, it might not even happen. This is just there's something they envisage, and maybe it's something they're aiming towards. But when it actually comes to it, it could be completely different to how they've sort of used the words already. So until I stop seeing unique things being associated to unique platforms, for example, Xbox having its own things that are different to Nintendo having its own things that are different to Sony, and so on, I don't see this being a thing. I just really don't, because how could it be?
Well, but have we not just seen evidence, though? Xbox Live's going to be on the Switch. Is that not evidence and kind of in front of you that this is the way it's going? Who'd have ever imagined that 10 years ago? That Xbox Live would be on a Nintendo platform?
Change.
It's unbelievable, really. And for all we know, a lot of Xbox fans I've seen getting excited about this. For all we know, Virtual Console could be on Xbox in the future, which would be massive, because people love those old Nintendo games. And if that's on the Xbox, I mean, that's a huge thing, right? That would be massive. That would be a huge coup for Microsoft. And maybe they just think, Nintendo, Microsoft, if Sony aren't going to play ball at the minute, we may as well take advantage and we can get more fans this way. But sort of we'll all benefit. We'll both benefit from this. So,
well, yeah. I mean, look, that's kind of the overall thought, isn't it? We will benefit from this, and if Sony come on board as well, hey, we'll all benefit from this. So eventually, bye individuality. We're all the same thing. You do the same thing on all our different platforms, and I completely take your point. Look, 10 years ago, who would have thought you'd see Xbox Live on another platform other than Xbox? You would never have said it. But if they're going to apply these words, because she was quite specific, right, when she was saying them, any game. So if you own a Switch, why do you own a Switch? What would be the point? Because you have Switch games, great. Oh, well, they're also on Xbox. There is no more exclusive, because they specifically said any game, not any
true.
Microsoft game or any Xbox game or any third party. It was any game across the board. So it doesn't matter what console or what device you use, they will be able to give you access to that, right? So I just don't get that. That just doesn't. I'm not saying it can't ever be a thing, but right now and in the sort of foreseeable future, I just don't see it.
No, and to be fair, she didn't say it was going to. She did give a time frame of 2030, which I think is quite a long time away. You think back 11 years ago, we were in 2007. I mean, you look at the gaming landscape in 2007 to now, how much it's advanced. And I think in the next 11 years, it'll be double the advancement. of what we've seen, even in the last 11 years. So it's a long time, really. It's not a long time in terms of, I'm sure it'll soon pass for us and we'll be like, oh my God, it's 2030. But it's a long time in the gaming landscape, and I think a lot of things are going to change in the next few years. So
Definitely.
we'll have to wait and see. It's like everything.
I agree. We will have massive developments, but I don't think we'll see as many developments between 2019 and 2030 as we've seen from 2008 to now.
I disagree
The
with you.
jump has been huge.
Yeah, I disagree.
Like, where do you reach the point where...
But you're talking in terms of advancements of consoles and graphics. And
I'm talking about advancements of everything, software and hardware.
I think you're underestimating technology. I think there's going to be a lot of massive advancements soon that we don't even know about yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, that's how life works, right?
Yeah,
things advance.
Exactly.
But I think things will get better, but...
Technology is advancing at a faster rate than it ever has in history. Right now. That's what makes me think that... I just think
from a gaming perspective, not an overall sort of technological standpoint. I think from gaming, look, it's hard to sort of quantify, I guess, isn't it? And we'll only sort of really know when it comes, but that it would be a big achievement to achieve what they've done in the last 11 years.
When this podcast is the biggest podcast in the world in 11 years' time, we'll revisit this topic and
when
say,
people are listening on their Sony Box Tendo.
Yeah, exactly. We'll revisit it in 11 years' time and see.
That sounds like a good deal. And a good way to end that topic.
Yeah,
we'll revisit it. Anyway, moving on to topic 4, which is that PlayStation exec explains why Sony is skipping E3. So, Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios chairman Sean Layden recently discussed why Sony is skipping E3 this year. He said, "Now we have an event in February called Destination PlayStation, where we bring all retailers and third-party partners together. June now is just too late to have Christmas holiday discussions with retailers. Retail has really dropped off, and journalists now with the internet and the fact that 24/7 there is game news is lost the impact around that. So the trade show became a trade show without a lot of trade activity. The world has changed, but E3 hasn't changed with it." So, obviously, pretty damning opinion, I guess, of E3 and how Sony sees it now. And obviously, this would suggest that I don't see them going back to E3 anytime soon.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Some of the points he makes are valid points. He talks, doesn't he, about how E3 is not the same as it was, when it first started. When it first started, it was supposed to be more of a trade show, wasn't it? Where deals would happen and, people would buy, companies and buy exclusive rights at the show and stuff like that. It doesn't really happen like that anymore. It's more about the big impact of the big sort of developers showing off their games and making huge announcements. So, and he's obviously saying that, what it was for originally isn't what it does now and that it's not as relevant. But I just think it all seems like a smoke screen to me. I just think really, if you look behind the message, if you look behind the actual message they're sending, the hidden message for me, what they're saying is, we don't really have much to show this year, to be honest, and we can't really justify a big E3 presence, so we're not going. And basically, we've moved on to PS5 development. There's not going to be much more to be said about PS4 games, new PS4 games. Obviously, there's PS4 games like to come, like Last of Us, blah, blah, Death Stranding, things like that, Ghost of Tsushima. But there's not going to be anything new on PS4 now, so we don't see the point, and we're not ready to announce PS5. So they're kind of stuck in this limbo at the minute. They're not ready to move on from PS4, but they're not ready, they're not ready to talk about PS5 either, so it's an interesting one. I just think some of the things he says where he says about, we want to move away from the big bombs of E3 and things, but isn't that what we all watch E3 for? We all like that excitement of the new big game coming out.
Tune in and enjoy gaming as a spectacle.
Yeah, exactly. Millions of people watch E3 every year. I think from a fan's point of view, I'd say it's disappointing. Because I think we'd all want to see a strong Sony at E3 showing new massive games off.
Yeah, definitely.
But the writing maybe was on the wall last year. I mean, how, this, I think most people would agree with this. Their E3 conference last year, I know you might, but you must have seen clips from it. It was really bad. Really bad. I mean, where they kept, they started off with some guy playing, the flute, didn't they? And it was what am I watching? Almost, they moved people at one point, didn't they, from one arena to the other, and they had to take an interlude because it took like 10 minutes. It was like, what am I watching?
That sounds like
terrible.
a mess.
And
I
it's
know
like,
for sure one of the IGN employees who was there specifically to see the Destiny stuff, they missed it.
Yeah.
Because they were
'Cause
moving around, and by the
it.
time they got into the next arena, they'd missed the whole thing they were there to see. So
Sounds like a nightmare. to be
yeah,
honest.
it's
I don't know
disastrous
really.
idea.
It does, pose the question of where does Sony go with E3 from here? I'm not going to say they're never going to go again, because I still have a sneaky feeling that maybe one day they could return. Depends what E3 is like.
It's
in a few
definitely not
years.
in their minds though at the moment.
No, not at the minute. No, I think they're obviously not going this year, and be interesting to see next year though, won't it, with a new console announcement? But it seems like they might use their own show to promote that, like the PlayStation Experience. Maybe next year's. A lot of people have rumored, haven't they, that they're going to maybe do a show early next year, early 2020, and release the console. Not release the console, reveal the console early next year. And it seems like they want to use their own outlets now, doesn't it, to announce their news?
Yeah.
Rather than... What I would say, though, is one thing I'd say is it does give Microsoft basically free reign over every third party at E3 in terms of they can now say, we're going to have the biggest E3 games on our stage because, they're not going to be signing deals with Sony.
They've been saying that for years anyway.
Yeah, I know, but you know what I mean. They literally will have the best... because Xbox have come out and said it's going to be our biggest E3 ever, and I think they... Not even
they say that every year,
yeah,
they do. We have to take
it's just a
marketing
ploy.
The third party, there's going to be a lot of third party games now, isn't there? Big third party games at Microsoft's conference, because where else do they go? There is nowhere else to go. Nintendo don't even have a press conference anymore. They have their little direct thing that lasts, half an hour to 40 minutes, but it's not a traditional press conference like Microsoft do. So they've pretty much got free reign of E3, and I think Sony might regret that.
I think Sony, they're just testing the waters, really. They're gonna have their own show. They'll see how it does. They'll give it a few years, and then if E3 declines, obviously they'll be like, "Well, I see, told you so." But if E3 carries on as it is, or even it grows, they'll be jumping back.
Yeah,
they don't have any plans in probably in their mindset next 5 years. But I think they'll end up jumping back if things don't go the way they plan.
Yeah, one more point I wanted to make on this. Before we hear your thoughts about it, Perks, is, and you can actually kind of respond to this, kind of like a question to both of you, I suppose, but do we think this is a return, though? Are we starting to see signs of the arrogance of Sony returning, of the PS3 days? Because, of the late PS2 days when they were on top by a mile, and, the PS3, we all know what a disaster that was when it first came out with the price and the memes and things like that. Are we starting to see a return to that? Because recently... they've been making very strange moves, and Xbox has been doing all the goodwill moves, and we haven't seen much from Sony in that regard. And, all this talk about, we're not going to E3, it's almost like, we're too good for E3. We don't need to go to E3. We're the top dogs. Why would we be seen at that event and stuff like that? And
I don't know if it's arrogance or confidence of we're the top dogs. You want to come and see us because we've got the best game the best games out there for you, best hardware, etc., etc.
But that can suddenly turn to arrogance very quickly.
It can. It's a fine line, and if that confidence is wrong and they do badly, then everyone's going to say, "Well, you're arrogant and you got complacent."
Well, we've seen it before from Sony as well. That's another thing to point out. We have seen this before, and it wasn't that long ago. It was only 12 years ago, whatever it was. The PS3 launch. So a lot of the same people are still there. There's obviously a lot of new faces as well, but a lot of the same old people that were there 12 years ago are there now calling shots. So I don't know. It's just...
Let's get Perks' thoughts.
Yeah, we'll get Perks' thoughts anyway.
Well, funnily enough, on that topic, I was actually going to use the term that it's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, because it really is. The truth is with that is that we won't actually know the answer to that until we're able to sit here and
probably
use
until the
hindsight.
PS5 launch, right? That's when we'll probably know what we mean. So
and kind of just say, look, this is what it actually turned out to be. I would say it's a confidence move right now. If they don't perceive E3 to be what it was before, and they want to reveal things sooner in February, was it, with Destination PlayStation?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
maybe they're thinking, hey, we'll just hit first and hit just as hard as we ever did. So who needs E3 in June or closer to sort of the middle of the year? So
It's a big boy play, isn't it?
it seems
Definitely.
like it.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're definitely sort of going hard with their own confidence, which is why I'm confident in saying that. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for them. To be facetious, I could say they don't need to go to E3 anymore because Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo will all have the same things anyway, so it doesn't matter. So they can just leave Microsoft to show it all off. But look, people love E3. People still do love E3. Maybe it doesn't have the magic that it used to have. Maybe that's because we've grown up a little bit. We're a bit older than we used to be. But I think I'm quite confident in that. I speak for nearly every gamer when I say this. When something's kept under wraps and when it's released at E3, when nobody has even heard it before, and they hit you with that exclusive, then they hit you with that new third-party game, whatever it might be, when that gameplay footage shows, when that reveal trailer shows, everyone loses their mind. Mm-hmm. You hear it in the audience there, the cheering, the clapping. Everybody is jumping on it on forums, on social media.
Creates instant buzz.
E3 can still hit like that. Sure, these days we see less and less secrets because so many more things are leaked early.
Definitely.
And it does kind of lose its appeal.
He did touch on that, to be fair, didn't he?
Yeah, I think that is a good point he made. I mean, he's definitely right about... I'd say he's right in that department of it's harder and harder to keep things under wraps. And if you actually look at what some developers and publishers have been doing, they've been trying to do the reverse. They've been trying to get their game out early and say what it is, and then saying, we have more info for you at E3, or we have more info for you to try and get a buzz of, oh, what's it going to be? So there's definitely different strategies at play, but I still don't think you can beat that excitement of... I remember even, I'm sure you two remember this, the Fallout 4, when that was announced. Yeah. And people kind of knew it was going to be announced and like, Fallout's probably going to come. But the fact that they said, it's out at the end of the year, it was like, wow, it's coming out in like 5 months. That's awesome.
That was pretty good.
And it was great.
Yeah.
Like,
I just think the worst thing ever right now is when you get to the end of an E3 conference or when you hit a stage of it and you think, I know this game is coming, and it comes, and they're trying so desperately to make it bang, and it's just like, this is good, but we kind of knew it. It's number 30 in a Royal Rumble where the buzzer goes and you all know who 30 is. It's ruined,
it's like
it's Blue Tista.
Yeah.
Well,
it just doesn't quite have the firepower it used to because nothing's kept under wraps. But
I think the problem, Perks, with that is as well, how many times after, we've watched an event and we knew that was coming, and you sit there and then you say to each other, was that it?
Exactly.
Yeah. And, you go back to Sony's last year. How could anyone have been excited by that conference? We knew they said, didn't they, at the start, we're going to show these 3 or 4 games. Like, some people might be like, I want to see more of the games. Stuff like, but it's not exciting, is it? You know what you're going to be seeing. It's not exciting. It's like
they didn't do a particularly good job with it.
No, they didn't. They did a poor job, I think, and I think they're trying to mask some of the shortcomings of last year's E3 with these sort of statements, but because Microsoft completely wiped the floor with them as far as I'm concerned in last E3. I don't think it was even a debate who won E3.
It's like going downstairs on Christmas Day and Santa's already listed every single present.
Exactly.
There you go, mate. Socks,
well, and I'd say it's like Santa's, ripped some of the presents open and just they're there in the front room, and he said like, this is what you get. And I mean, wouldn't it be terrible, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We'd be all devastated.
Like, so, you know a lot of the stuff you're getting, but it's always nice to get the surprises.
I'd be devastated now. 26, to be honest. So,
well, you still believe in Santa, so you're going to be devastated too when you learn the truth.
I still believe. You got to keep the faith with Santa.
Like an elf.
He's a good guy. So, there you go.
Do you know what, though? The final thing that I've really got to say on this, and what I do take issue with Sean Layden on, is the fact that he said the world has changed, but E3 hasn't necessarily changed with it. Mm-hmm. My thoughts on that would be, hey, make a big play and change it yourself then. Bring a new way of presentation to that show. Make them change, because
good point.
You can show them that it can be better or it can be evolved over time.
They could
Don't just run away from it.
You could argue, though, they did try that and it failed spectacularly last E3. They did try and change it a little bit, but it just was such a poor effort that could you even class it as changing?
Honestly, I'm going to say that they didn't try and change it. They just didn't have a great show.
Yeah,
but I guess that's open to.
They tried to do something different, though, didn't they? With it, I'm saying, and it didn't work. Basically, it didn't work at all.
But look,
people
if that's
were
their vision,
confused by.
Hey, look, if that's their vision, if that's what they want it to be like, then Destination PlayStation is going to be crap. So,
yeah,
yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
a
I'd be a
worry,
bit
but-
more. No, I wouldn't be worried about that. I think they're going to have to go harder with that because they put the pressure on themselves now, haven't they? They've basically said, "We're not E3. This is the event. Whenever it's going to be. I guess they're going to obviously when they announce the console, basically they're going to have to show a lot off, aren't they? Next year, whenever it is, the end of the year next year.
Does
So
this not throw down the gauntlet to everyone else remaining in E3 though?
true.
There
Yeah,
you go. I
you
mean,
can make that argument.
I'd be sat there thinking, right, come on, let's put on a show. Let's show them that they're missing out,
Well,
and we can take advantage of this.
You can look at that two ways. You can say Sony have put all the pressure on Microsoft, haven't they? They've literally said, you take the next bat. If you're talking like a baseball reference, you're in next sort of thing. You go for it. Yeah, it's all on you, the pressure.
I'll go to sport as well, baseball.
Well, no, not you that go to sport, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And then on the other hand, you can say, well, Microsoft could say, wow, what a chance we've got. What an opportunity. No Sony E3, who usually, take all the headlines because they are, in gaming terms. I mean, it's a hard one because Nintendo are massive as well, but right now, Sony are the biggest, aren't they?
Yeah, I'd be in that
big,
camp though, Sud. Let's go and show
Yeah,
them.
no, I agree. I'm
This is a
fully
chance.
with you. There is pressure on Microsoft because if it's a terrible show, then
Oh, Sony will just sit there and go, told
Sony
you
will
so.
go laughing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it will be. I think I know last year's Microsoft conference wasn't perfect, but I think we all enjoyed it for what it was. It was a nice action-packed show.
Yeah, I
You
still
saw
look forward
good
to it.
trailers. Okay, we want to see more first-party games, and I think that could be a problem this year as well. I don't think they're going to show too much first-party stuff, to be honest. Because what can they show? I don't think they're going to show too much Halo. They might show a little bit, but are they going to show much Halo? I don't know. Maybe not. They'll show Gears 5, which will be exciting. But they haven't got anything else for this generation, so I don't think they're going to show much. Unless they announce the next console, which is a possibility. That's something we haven't
That
thought
would
about.
steal the show, wouldn't it?
That would steal
That
the
would
show.
be a
That'd
bang.
be huge if they announce the next console. Still seems early to me, though.
Yeah, I don't
18
think
yeah,
months.
I'm in that camp.
I think it'll be next E3 or maybe at their own event next year or something, but
Yeah, I agree.
it'd be interesting to see. And I don't want to say I believe them because how many years have we been duped by them saying it's the greatest show ever or whatever, but I've got more faith this year in them delivering after what I saw last year. So they're going in the right direction, that's for sure.
The gauntlet's definitely been thrown down to him,
Yeah,
so we'll see
absolutely.
how they answer the call, basically.
Interesting.
Anyway, that will do it for today's episode. We hope you've enjoyed listening. We've had fun discussing the topics today. Where can people find you on social media, Sud?
You can find me on Twitter at David10Spud.
Brilliant. How about you, Perks?
I'm at JG Perk on Twitter, but you'll more likely get a response from me on one of the podcast channels.
Yeah,
That's definitely true.
That is
No
actually
doubt about
true.
that.
Yeah.
Last post was 4 years ago.
I have no
Something
idea.
like
I don't
that.
even know why I advertise it anymore. I
No.
couldn't care less. Just find me at Checkpoint Reach podcast or whatever the hell we are. It's just so much more convenient.
Yeah, do that. Perks will answer you there. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Leld, LEL3Ds. Add a 9 on the end for Instagram. You can find Checkpoint Reached on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ChetReachPod. And we're also on YouTube, Checkpoint Reach Podcast. If you're listening to us on YouTube, give us a like, give us a comment. Let us know your thoughts on today's episode and give us a subscribe, please, as that will help the channel to grow. Anyway, thanks for joining me as ever, guys, and I hope you have a good week.
Thank you, and yeah, goodbye, people.
Bye, guys.
Bye, people.
Thank you.